How's it going, everyone? This is Griffdog here, and another year has come to a close. As you can tell, compared to 2017, this year has been different. But before we begin, if you look at the time bar, it's pretty long. So if you haven't done so already, grab your snacks, grab your drinks, grab a comfy seat. If you need to do so, hit that pause button to use the bathroom. Or if you're just short on time, I will leave timestamps in the description below if there's a specific topic that you want to hear about. But let's just start with 2017 and let's just go ahead and jump into August of 2017. In my second ever QA video, I said this at the end of that video. But just so you know right now, I'm looking for new opportunities and I'm looking to grow independently. I still do YouTube, but it is not going to be as big as a thing as it was earlier in 2017. In the Q&A video, I mentioned I was going to pick up a full-time job. The reason why I picked up the full-time job is to make sure that I get the proper equipment for what I wanted to do here at Grifftalks Productions and to help pay off my student loans. Now, technically, yes, you can definitely make videos with cheap equipment. I've seen it done before, and it does look good. But for what I personally want to do with my content, I do have to put in a little more cheddar. So what ended up happening is that I did get a full-time job, but I actually got one pretty quickly. And so the reason why? I got the job through a temp agency. A temp agency is an agency that helps employees get and work with other bigger companies through either temporary positions or short contracts. I have been working through the temp agency over the past year in, I would say, 4 months. So about 15 months, I've been doing work through the temp agency. And I've done 2 jobs through the temp agency. The first one was an implementation specialist, which I did for about 2 months, but it didn't really work out for me, and I ended up moving away from that position. But they found another position for me as an operations processor, and I've been doing that job since November of 2017, and I'm still working there today. Throughout my time, I've had, or should I say, I have learned 2 benefits and 2 downfalls to working a temp agency. The first benefit is, as I mentioned before, you get into a job pretty quickly. What usually happens in a temp agency is you go in, they interview you as if it's like a job, and they ask like, what are some of the things you're good at? What are some of the things you like? What are some of the things you want to avoid? Where do you want to work? Like, what time do you want to work? Whether it's morning, afternoons, or nights? Do you want it to be full-time, part-time, all that fun stuff? And then they partner you up with a job just like eHarmony for jobs. And as I said, about a week, you are in and you're running with it. The first downfall off of that, though, that I mentioned before, is these jobs are usually quick. They are either, as I said, temporary positions or like contracts that last, usually I would say about 3 months. The max amount of time that a contract can go through, at least for my temp agency, is 2 years. That is something to keep in mind, and I will actually go back to that at the end of this video. So unless you prove yourself at the company, you really aren't going to last long. And that's just the way the business is at the temp agency. Now, the second upside that I learned from this is it is a great resume builder. If you want to find a quick way to help get experience so that you can get the job that you eventually want, temp agencies are the way to go. Even if it is for areas that you're not necessarily interested in or stuff that's not in your field. Like, for example, for me, the work I'm doing isn't necessarily with a camera and it's not necessarily with art. But it does help me with my computer skills, and I'm able to type a lot faster because of my temp job. Now, the big second downfall that I want to mention before I continue on, and this is the one that really got me, and that's the reason why it seems like I'm constantly working. I do not get PTO, or paid time off. So whether it is a holiday or the North Carolina trip, I was not paid during that entire time. The good news, though, is that I was able to save up enough to go on the trip, but I'll talk about that later. The point is, though, I've been constantly working in order to get the money, and again, like, even though it does stink, what you need to realize is that I agreed to it. Like, I did see the fine print, and I did acknowledge it, because I needed some work so that I can get some money, so that I can get the proper equipment and help pay off my student loans. Before we get into January, I do want to mention that one of the great upsides is that last December I did pay off my first student loan. What's more, at the end of January, I do eventually plan to pay off my second student loan. So it's not 100% worthless. I'm able to actually pay off some of the student loans. So what I'm about to talk about next isn't necessarily good, but I do want to preface that there is definitely some upside to doing this grind. As I continue to discuss this year in review, note that pretty much almost every single week this year, I have worked, that is not my YouTube stuff, anywhere between 40 to 60 hours a week. So if it seems like there's less content than there was in 2017, you're right, but the work has not stopped for me. So with that being said, let's go ahead and let's start quarter number 1, which is January through March of 2018. First thing I worked on was a podcast, Grifftalks and Diecast. It was 4 episodes long, and the biggest reason why I started was because last winter I purchased that mic. I didn't say anything because I didn't want the audio to get like jiffed or anything like that. But I got a mic. I would consider it a more professional mic, and in my opinion, it sounds a lot better. So I wanted to get some use out of it, and I ended up doing a little bit of a podcast. It started off good. I liked the first 2 episodes, but when I did the second 2, which was my first guest, and then I also talked about the Daytona 500, which was my series finale, if you want to call it, I've lost interest in it. First of all, because I was doing all the work I was doing, but also because working on the podcast actually was a lot more work than I originally intended. I had to get the thumbnail ready. I had to make sure the audio was rendered properly. I also had a script ready, because if I did not have a script, I would be screwed over there. So making sure all that's ready, and again, since I'm doing this it just didn't work out for me, and I lost interest in the podcast. Could it be something that I might bring back in the future? Possibly, but for right now, I'm pushing the podcast idea off to the side. Right now, the NASCAR podcast and Joseph Lombard's podcast is doing a pretty good job. I'll leave that to them for now. The first real video I did for 2018 was my predictions video. That video was interesting because it was the first time that I actually made a video like showing off myself in 2 months, because last time I showed myself off was my year in review video of 2017. So it felt very interesting just getting back into it, and especially that whole time working close to 50 hours every week. So up front, like face to face, it was a little difficult just to try to get into it and trying to, speak. But the thing I enjoyed and the thing I loved most was the editing. There was quite a few things that I enjoyed in the editing process, and I actually did get a green screen canvas, which is what you saw at the beginning of the video. And I loved editing that, and I loved just doing different little editing quirks. And one thing I want to mention is my favorite part of making a video is the editing. I love doing those little edits and little memes inside, and that is something that I enjoy, and hopefully you enjoy it as well. The last video that I made in the first quarter was my 3,000 subscriber special, which was a Q&A, and I would say looking back on it, that's the video I least liked. And the reason why is, I'll talk more about it more in depth in a minute, but I was just not there mentally. What I was in at that time was Harry Potter. I got really deep into it. I actually this year listened via audiobook all 7 of the Harry Potter books. Don't get me wrong, I love the story. It is a great story. I love the character arcs. I love the story arc. I love everything about it. But I was at a point where I might have taken it a little too far. And what I ended up doing was putting it in the 3,000 subscriber special. And I figured out my Hogwarts host and stuff like that. And looking back on it now, I don't think it was a good decision. Because again, NASCAR and Harry Potter, it's almost like two completely different fandoms or groups, if you will. And again, just mentally, I was just not there. And one thing I absolutely hated too was if you saw the video, the quality of the screen grabs was trash. And the reason why, I used a Google Chrome extension to record my the footage on there. And so you're thinking, Griffdog, you use Fraps for Enter 2003, why can't you use that for the desktop? For whatever reason, the Fraps that I have doesn't allow me to do that. So I have to use another thing. So if there is anyone watching this right now, if any of you are watching this, if there's any way that I could get footage or that is from a desktop, let me know. And I definitely want to imply something like that in the future. Not Harry Potter, of course, but something else. So that's all that I've published in the first quarter. But let's talk a lot more in depth into what you did not see. One More Spark 1987. I did talk about this in my update video back in June, but I want to go more in depth with this and exactly what happened. So in September of 2017, when I finished One More Spark 2001, I was hyped at the time. Now, also at the same time, I was doing the Temp Job for, what was it, just like a month in. So I was still pretty fresh, and I was ready to go ahead and jump right into One More Spark 1987. So what happened? As I just said, I grinded it and I went into it. And so for about, I'm just trying to think, from October through March, I worked constantly. Throughout that entire span, which a majority of it is in the winter, I worked a temp job. I worked at a news station on the weekends. If you didn't know that already, I did work at a news station on the weekends. I worked on One More Spark, and then I also worked out. And mind you, in the winter too, my car was outside because there was no room in the garage that I live in. So every morning I had to go out, scrape the car, drive to work, look at a computer for 8 hours, then immediately go and work out for an hour, come home, work on One More Spark for about 3-4 hours, and then go to bed at somewhere between 11 and midnight, get some sleep, and then wake up again at 6:15 in the morning and start the grind all over again. Looking back on it now, not healthy at all. Not at all. It was so bad for me. Just doing all that work, it's one of those things where I mentioned before, I just starting to lose it mentally. And so what happened with One More Spark was I got all the races done, which mind you, I did the Cup Series, the Busch Series, and IROC. Every race was 10 to 15% long, which I'm not a fan of, and I'll talk more about that at the end of the video. And what did I do? And then also I ran all the races and I recorded them all on CCM. The plan was this, if you didn't know this already, what my plan was, every race weekend, so like one weekend where it's Daytona, next weekend is Rockingham, etc., I was going to go ahead and upload one weekend a day. And it'll be roughly, I would say, about 33 weeks. And it'll be 33 days in a row. The reason why I did it that way is so that you guys did not have to wait so long. In paper, it is a good idea. What I missed on, though, was winter, working a temp job, and then working on the weekends as well. I hardly had any time. And the reason I stayed quiet is so that you guys did not have to worry. Again, that was a formula for disaster. And it got to a point where I burned out. Like 100% burned out. It got to a point where it was so bad that my mind was in a fog. And it was just some days where I just could not think. I don't know if you guys have felt that before, but Like, it was awful. I could not think, I could not get creative. And there was a time in February where I was not able to work on One More Spark just because I had no drive to. I had no desire to. Working on the prediction video was such a relief because I was able to work on something different. I was able to get creative on a different front. So hopefully that explains a little bit as to why it was kind of quiet at that time. And so what ended up happening was, again, the races were done. And if I haven't done so already in the edits, I'll have some footage here of the what I had for One More Spark 1987. Footage was done, CCM was recorded, and CCM is the program I use so that the races look a lot more lifelike. And that's it. I haven't done any editing, I haven't done any commentating, I haven't added any sound effects at the time. But you also got to realize how big this was. Now, if One More Spark was my only project, I probably would have been able to get it done successfully. But with working 50 hours on the side, it really wasn't good for me. And I don't know if I'm going to get dinged for talking about this stuff, but I feel like it needs to be talked about. I need to get this out so that you guys do understand what was going on with me. One thing I do want to mention though before I continue is that the work itself is not bad. My temp job is not difficult. It's just tedious and repetitive. That's all. And my news station job, absolutely no issues with that either. It's just driving to work on Saturday and Sunday is a little pain in the butt. However, I still got the job done. Another thing that I learned about myself over the winter is I do have, they call it a disorder, but I disagree. It's called SAD, or Seasonal Affective Disorder. It's pretty much a mood disorder where pretty much depression takes over one person through a specific time of year. And for me, it's winter. And I think the reason why is because like I'm an introvert and I love to like go outside and I love to like enjoy things on my own. But being congested in like buildings and being around people all the time, it again just felt like too much. And especially since it's in the winter, it's cold outside, so I had to take time and put clothes on and stuff like that. It sounds negative, and like even though it sounds like I'm complaining, what I want to do is I'm trying to kind of paint a canvas for you guys so that you guys can understand what I was going through at the beginning of this year and why I was so quiet at the beginning of 2018. One blessing I would say, just looking back on it now, is I'm kind of glad I stopped One More Spark, and I mentioned this in my update video back in June, but I want to re-mention it here. I'm glad I did, just because I was not a fan of where it was going moving forward. It just had this weird setup going, and the thing I was not a fan of is the short races. It just, even though the season was over, the racing just did not feel complete. Like, it honestly feels not realistic because the races were only 50 laps long. You know what I mean? It just doesn't feel complete. Like, I'm not satisfied because of how short the races really were. So it was around March is when I lost it, quote unquote. And as I said, it really showed in the 3K subscriber video. Last thing I do want to talk about then, before we move on to quarter number 2, is again, just my health. Both my mental health and my physical health were definitely in danger because of this constant work. I completely almost ignored my body at the time, which I know now is an awful thing to do. You're going to ask, but Griff, you work out, so why is this still a negative impact? Well, looking back on it now, 2 things. First of all, I was not complementing my working out with a good diet, because you got to remember, I'm constantly on the move, so I don't have time to pick out like veggies, and so I was eating relatively poorly, and I thought, oh, protein, that'll help, but no, again, complementing it is bad. Or complimenting, you gotta have a good diet, is what I'm trying to say. You gotta have your veggies. And I understand that some of you don't like vegetables. It is like a superfood. I'm serious. Like that meme where Popeye eats the spinach and he gets super strong. But you feel so much better, like physically and mentally, when you eat your peas, you eat your corn. It's so good for you. But anyway, the other thing too, number 2, I was, again, constantly on the move, and so I would jump from work to working out, and I did not have like a transition point, if you will, and so almost doing that was a negative impact on me as well. And if you're thinking, oh, you should leave the temp job, you gotta take care of yourself, you also gotta realize if I did that, I would be SOL financially. So again, it's one of those things where I feel like I needed to do this. It sucked, but it needed to happen in order for me to grow and for me to move on to, if you will, greener pastures. Let's move on to quarter number 2, and that is April through June. So what happened after my little breakdown, if you will? So I took some time away from just making videos and just everything in general. I still worked at my temp job and I still worked at the news station, but I needed to take a step back and I needed to think, what do I need to do? What do I need to do to get out of this fog? What do I need to do in order for me to get back to my old self, if you will? First of all, on the health side, I started to be more active in terms of like running, because working out, normally what I would do is like lift weights, but I need to do some running, and I've also, of course, cut back on fatty foods. But there is definitely more to that, and I'll talk more about that later. In terms of video making, what ended up happening was I needed to find a way just to get back into it. Again, there's no way I would continue with One More Spark because I was just sick of it. Even just thinking about it, I was just sick of it, and there's no way I would continue with it at that time. So what ended up happening? I made shorts, and those shorts ended up being my most viewed videos of 2018. I was completely shocked that these got the attention that these did. I was not thinking about reactions or what people would think about these. I personally just think, from an audience member, just what I would want to see is interesting. Like, what if they did race at Tiburon Speedway, or in this case, Orlando Speedway? What if they did race at Daytona Beach? And then, of course, I made another Analyzing the Big One video. And as I said before, lots of views, lots of support, and I thank you so much for helping with that support. But again, I was not thinking, oh boy, this is going to get so many views. That, at this point, again, my mind was still in a fog. I just wanted to create things, honestly. And honestly, I'm glad I did, and I'm glad that you guys were so interested in my content. Meanwhile, I'm still doing my temp work. Nothing really much has changed there. The only big difference, though, is that I was able to get a desk where I'm able to stand and work. I should have a picture here. What's awesome about it is that I'm able to still work in front of a computer, but I'm able to burn some calories while I'm doing it as well. Not like a ton of calories, but it's a big difference between that and just sitting and doing my work. So if you do have an office job, I highly suggest you guys do get a standing desk so that you can be somewhat healthier while you do your computer work. Now, even though this is all good, I'm still in a rut. And actually, I want to jump back to quarter 1 for a minute, because one thing that happened was during my little, breakdown, there was one night where I cried. Yeah, that's right. Even though I'm a man and men don't cry. Again, I want to make sure you guys get the whole picture. And so I did. I was bawling because it's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know if I can keep going with YouTube. I don't know what. So what ended up happening was I ended up talking to my high school best friend, Isaac. Such a great guy. Long story short, if it weren't for him, I would not be where I am now. Anyway, me and him started talking, and we started talking quite frequently. And because of that, the biggest thing that happened in my entire, I would say 2018 and my entire life happened. So the It's Time video that you see here announced, as I said, my biggest thing. And that was driving to North Carolina and back solo. That happened at the end of May, where I saw the Coke 600, which was my first ever NASCAR Cup race, as well as Isaac's, as well as his wife, which was awesome. I won't talk too much about it here, just because I did make a 5-part vlog series. I'll have it here. 5-part vlog series, so if you have some time after watching this video, I highly recommend you guys check it out, because this is the first time where I left my nest, if you will. I left my little safety bubble, if you will, and I explored what a good chunk of Eastern America has to offer. Completely blown away. And again, it's like sometimes it's hard for me to speak, but just seeing everything that I saw, checking out Kansas City, St. Louis, Nashville, Knoxville, Tennessee, all the stuff in North Carolina, Winston-Salem, Charlotte, Raleigh. Again, just completely blew my mind. But there was something in that trip. There were two big takeaways that I took away from that trip. First of all, it reminded me why I decided to become a movie maker and why I decided to pick up the temp job and why I decided to make the decisions that I have at the time. And then two, why I am such a diehard NASCAR fan and why I'm continuing to make these videos even though I am still working 50 hours a week. It all makes sense. And that trip was kind of my big wake-up call to get me out of this rut and really make sure I get my butt into gear so that I continue doing this so that I don't lose my mojo. And I think that is so important. Before we get to July and quarter number 3, which is July through September, I did make one more controversial Enter 2003 video, and I call it controversial because it did get quite a few Dislikes. It was my first Enter 2003 short that was not related to NASCAR. I decided to do the impossible, and I had Indy cars racing at Talladega. And that race showed why Indy cars don't race at Talladega. I made a video because it was the first time in, I think it was over a month, because I spent a majority of the time setting up and getting ready for the North Carolina trip. But once I was back from the trip, I needed a little someone to get back into Enter 2003, and so I made that IndyCar video. It wasn't perfect, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because it was, again, a different part of motorsports that I was not really a part of. And I wouldn't say I don't like IndyCar. I do watch the Indy 500 every year, but it's not something that I follow as quote-unquote religiously as NASCAR. And so it was definitely interesting, and I learned quite a bit about IndyCar through that and learning about different drivers and how they say their names. It was all important. Now, again, not many people liked it, but I still got support from it, and again, thank you so much for that support. Alright, so let's move on to quarter number 3, and let's move on to my biggest project of 2018, and that is the Summer Showdown. I dropped a teaser video late June, and then I had that update video that I mentioned a couple of times already. And I would just say, looking back on it now, I would say about 50% of what I'm saying now is in that video. Because that's when I talked about the failure that was One More Spark 1987, and just some of the hardships that I had to learn and go through on my own to get to where I'm at that time. One side note I do want to mention before I continue on with more of the NASCAR stuff is that at the end of July, I did quit the news station. And before you start trying to find any drama behind the quit, there isn't any. And the simple reason why is because I worked there for 2 years. I learned a lot. I grew a lot. I kind of figured out what I want to do in life as a career. And what I did at the news station helped me out tremendously. People are great. The company is great. I don't have any problems with it. I just think that working there for 2 years is good enough. And it gives me more freedom on the weekends, which is awesome. The thing that's also great about them is that they actually let me use their green screen for the teaser video, as well as the A-main, which you will see in January. I already teased it like on Instagram and Twitter, so you already know that I will show myself again in the A-main. And I'll talk more about that later. Another thing that I debuted on in quarter number 3 was the NASCAR podcast. If you didn't know what it was already, it was a podcast made by 4 other NASCAR YouTubers, and it's usually every Wednesday, but sometimes if something happens, it's either on a Tuesday or a Thursday. But every week, they would talk about the NASCAR weekend, news, just anything NASCAR. And it's a podcast, but it's more of like a live stream, and fans and other people can go in and chime in and have their own discussion, and it's a good time. I was on there 3 times. And just as a quick side note, those 4 other YouTubers were Black Flags Matter, Darian Gillian, I think that's how you say your name, Danny B Talks, Then you have the Iceberg, Jarrett, and then Erich Estep. It's either Estep or Estep. I apologize if I got that wrong. Anyway, so I was on their podcast 3 times. And those 3 being after the Chicagoland race, before the Watkins Glen race, and then after the Homestead race. I was part of the all-star crew, if you will. The thing that I took away from those podcasts, and it's nothing against them, is I realized how quiet I am in a group. And it's really funny because it's like you have your own little Grifftalks and you hear me talking like all the time. So why do you fall so quiet all of a sudden? First of all, I mentioned already in this video, and if you already know already, I'm an introvert. I usually like being on my own, and it's like when I'm either in my own little world or in a one-on-one conversation, I tend to be a lot more open and active. And again, nothing against them, it's just a lot of who I am and my personality, but there's a couple other things too. Number 2, second off, it's really minor, but I do want to bring this out. I do have a little bit of a speech impediment, which if you don't know what that means, sometimes it's just difficult for me to speak. And that's honestly a reason why I'm so huge behind actions being louder than words. Because you see stuff that you physically see, and that is so much more impactful than those news where they say someone says something. Which, side note, I don't consider that as news. Unless you see action behind those news, I just don't care about that. But that's, again, another discussion for another day. And then third off, I kind of said it already, but I usually just get quiet and I usually fall back when in a group. Now, for the NASCAR podcast, I don't really know what their guidelines are, per se. But the way I see it, the focus is more on them, which I completely understand. They have, like, an outline and they have stuff that they want to talk about. And since I was the guest, I just go ahead and I let them say their spiel. I don't know if that is true or not, but at least that's the vibe that I got. Now, if it's like a one-on-one conversation, so like if Darian has a one-on-one talk with me, or if Joseph Lombard decides to have a one-on-one talk with me, then that stuff I will promote so hard, because if there's anything I love doing, I want to talk deep. Like, I want to have those deep conversations. I love asking questions. I love just having that one-on-one interaction. Which, side note, and I believe this is true, and actually I think this is going to come out after. Yeah, this is going to come out afterward, but I did a conversation one-on-one with Erich. I love Mikey Waltrip Keplinger? Anyway, I did a conversation with him, and hopefully that ends up being well. But anyway, it is a one-on-one conversation. When it gets into a group, however, that, like, honestly, it's just, to me, it becomes almost like a sensory overload, and I almost become like a fan, and I watch it all. But then, from your point of view, what you probably see is just some guy just sitting there, and then you see everyone else talking. And again, I want to mention before, what they're doing is fantastic. Keep doing that. It's just something that I need to work on doing, and I need to learn just to kind of speak up when there is like a quiet time. And I do it a couple of times, but I feel like I could do better at that. And so at least being aware of it, I think, it's at least half the battle, I would say. Now, let's talk about the biggest thing that happened to me in July. And that was going to my first Xfinity race in how long has it been? Since 2002. So go ahead and do the math. It's been a while. But anyway, what ended up happening is me and my older brother went to the Xfinity race at Iowa. And it was nuts. It was so nuts. Like, I mean, my great acting definitely shows, but I mean, like, the whole experience was straight up incredible. I was planning on doing a vlog for that race, but because I was still working on the temp job, which I forgot to mention, the entire time I was still doing my temp job, as well as working on the Summer Showdown, which I'll talk about in a little bit, I didn't have time to set up a vlog, and so I'll just show the footage here, now, as I'm talking. But as I said, nuts. The biggest thing that happened, and what started off it all, was Xfinity Racing, God bless them, they talked to me, and I got free garage passes to the Iowa race. I was so humbled and honored to have that, and because of that, me and my older brother were able to go into the garage, and we were able to check out everything going on in there. I will admit, I probably could have done more, but I think just what we did see and do, I think is good enough. So, of course, we went in, we looked around, we looked at some of the static displays, which was amazing. But then we went into the infield, and probably, there's so many crazy things. But one of the crazy things, we were right there for the drivers' meeting. I was right next to the drivers. They had their drivers' meeting, everyone was there, and I was feet away from Christopher Bell. I was so close. I could have touched him if I wanted to. Of course, I didn't because, that would be, issues and everything. But I was right there. It was so crazy. And again, as a shy person as myself, it's like, I don't know what to do because I know they're people and people do people things. But it's like, I also look up to them, Which, quick little side note, it's so weird, seeing these people up close because, again, I'm a taller person, 6'1". So seeing some drivers that are actually shorter than me, another eye-opening experience, but I wouldn't say for the good reasons. But that's besides the point. Anyway, that was crazy. But the last crazy thing, before the race even started, I got pictures with 3 Xfinity drivers. I got pictures with Casey Roderick, I got a picture with Alex Bay, and I got a picture with the man himself, Jeff Green. That's right, the very same driver that won the 2000 Pikes Peak race that I saw 18 years ago, finally got a picture with him. And if you can tell by the face I made right there, I think I was talking, and I was like, oh yeah, I saw you at 2000 Pikes Peak race, and you mentioned, yes, that was a really good time. And it's just like, oh, I was a fangirl at that time. Because, this is the first, time I got to get so close to them, and it's like, I don't know what to do. So, I don't know if I ended up paying a good attention or what. One thing I want to mention before the actual race was I wanted to get a picture with Kyle Benjamin, because if you didn't know, there's a meme going around that I secretly am Kyle Benjamin. Unfortunately, I was not able to get a picture with him, but it was very interesting because there was a time where I was in the grass and Kyle Benjamin was sitting on the pit wall and he had his earbuds in, and I think he was in his zone getting ready for prepping himself for the race, if you will. Every time I looked at him, he also looked back at me. So I don't know if he was just uncomfortable with me or if it was just pure coincidence, or I wonder if he was thinking the same thing I was thinking, and it's like, wow, that guy looks a lot like me. I don't know if that's true or not, but if I did make you uncomfortable, Kyle, and if you are watching this, I do apologize. I just wanted to get a picture with you, and I just wanted to see how much we do look a lot like each other. So there was a race. The race was pretty good. The cars were pretty close. There was a point at the end where there was a long green flag run, but we did have quite a few cautions at the end. And if you were wondering about if I got footage of the wreck, the red flag, I unfortunately did not, and the reason why was because they were 3-4 wide for the lead. I think I'm playing it right here. But yeah, I did not get the footage, and I'm a little disappointed in that. Hopefully someone did, but unfortunately I did not because, again, they were battling 4 wide for the lead. And in the end, Christopher Bell won the race. Christopher Bell won the race, we got home, and one thing I do want to applaud to of Iowa Speedway is the parking. The parking that they have there is excellent. The way they have it set up with the diagonal parking spots, everyone was able to get out relatively easily. Me and my brother then went to a hotel to stay overnight. It was a bit of a run-in hotel. I don't remember what it was called, but not the best. I don't recommend it. But the part that was interesting, though, was when I was in line to get my hotel, the couple that were in front of me, and I actually ended up starting talking to them, actually ended up being Joey Gase's aunt and uncle. And apparently they go to all of Joey's races, and they're like, yeah, they're a big supporter of him, and we love to see him race. And I thought it was really cool. And no, I don't have any leads now to talk to Joey Gase or to get to him, but the conversation I had with him was nice. And that's it with the trip. We did our stuff, me and my brother slept, and we drove back home to South Dakota the day after, and life went back to normal, or quote-unquote normal, for the time being. The last thing I want to mention before I jump to quarter number 4 is The reason why there was such a big gap between the update video and then actually the first part of the Summer Showdown, because you kind of noticed that I kind of talked about Summer Showdown a little while ago, and now I'm bringing it back up now. In the middle, I painted 54 cars for the Summer Showdown from scratch. I worked on those, and as you saw on Twitter and Instagram, I was able to show them off for you guys. And that was kind of my way to unveil who was going to race in the Summer Showdown. So let's go ahead and let's jump into quarter number 4. And a big part of quarter 3 and 4 was the Summer Showdown, but I'm going to talk about that last because that is still ongoing. First thing I want to talk about though in quarter number 4 is what happened at the end of October. That was the Kansas race. Like the Iowa race, I was planning on doing a vlog for it, but because of still doing the temp work, plus working on the Summer Showdown, I didn't have time, so to make up for it, my footage is here as I'm talking. It was a good time. We ended up driving down on Saturday, and it was me, my older brother, my little brother, and my dad. We all drove down on Saturday, and then on Saturday night, we got our hotel, and then we went to an Italian restaurant. And the waiter that we had there was a Marine. The reason why I mentioned he's a Marine is important, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But as for the weekend, on Sunday, we ended up spending the rest of the time there. Beautiful day. It was in the 50s, 60s, not a cloud in the sky, hardly any wind. Great day for a race. The actual race was okay, but before that, the stat displays were awesome. I did see Bubba Wallace, even though he probably didn't acknowledge my existence. However, one driver that did acknowledge my existence was Trevor Bayne. And I did get a picture with Trevor Bayne as well as an autograph. So this Trevor Bayne is officially autographed by him. The actual race was fine. But just honestly being there, the cars roaring around at over 200 miles an hour, I enjoyed it. Now, one thing the reason I mention this is because of my work at the Temp Agency. One big thing was how close we were to the start-finish line. Sure, it did cost a little bit more, but the scene was beautiful. And the thing that helped too, Chase Elliott, when he had his burnout, was almost directly right in front of us, and thus the footage was spectacular off my phone. So overall, it definitely was a good time. We ended up driving back that night. One thing I did earn from that trip, though, was a wicked sunburn. And at first I thought it was odd because it wasn't hot at all, but the sun was beaming down on my face the entire time. There were no pictures of me of the sunburn, thank goodness, but it was not a good time. Lots of aloe vera was used, and I think I had a tweet saying aloe vera is awesome or something like that. I'll have it here. Yeah, that's the reason why I mentioned aloe vera, because I got sunburned during the Kansas trip. But overall, as I said, it was definitely a good time. Before moving forward, one other little craze that I got into in September and October was that I purchased some 1/24 scale diecasts. Majority of the ones that you see here were from eBay. The Dale Jarrett one was from my North Carolina trip. The Casey Kane one was from Kansas. And then the Kyle Busch Race One diecast, I just got that last week. Otherwise, all the other stuff was from eBay. I do plan to get more, and I do plan to eventually get a stand to put all those, or a case for all the 124s to go into. I just love seeing all of them there, and I love the details that they go into. Now then, why did I mention that when we ate at the Italian restaurant that our waiter was a Marine? So first of all, my little brother, I mentioned, went to the race with us. He graduated high school this year, and this summer he made the decision to join the Marines himself. On November 12th, he was officially sworn in, and he flew off to San Diego. As I'm recording this right now, he is doing boot camp in San Diego. I wish I could have mentioned this more to him, but I am so proud of my little brother. I'm so proud of making the commitment to sacrifice his life for our freedoms. And yes, this country isn't perfect, but the fact that he's able to risk his life for our safety, so huge. And I'm so proud of him to make that commitment. So if you ever do watch this, Tate, just know that I am so thankful for you. And again, I wish I would have said it more to your face. So hopefully this makes up for it. Again, I'm so proud to have a Marine as my brother. So the reason why I mention all this is because, Tate and the waiter ended up having this deep conversation about just being a Marine, like what platoon they're in, some of their special forces, stuff that I know nothing about. But it was so cool seeing them talk about it, and it's like almost as if they were family. And Tate didn't even do the boot camp stuff yet. So it was just so cool to see them discuss all of this. That was big. But speaking of big, let's go ahead and talk about the Summer Showdown. Now, yes, you could say this is the Winter Showdown, or you can make a meme about that. That is what it is. For right now, it is called the Summer Showdown, but it is pushed to winter because of, again, well, one reason is because of my temp job, of course, but the other reason why is I didn't realize how much detail I was going to put into it. Like, I knew this was going to be a big project. I just didn't realize how big it was going to be. But I went all out. I did the graphics. I showed off a lot more because I have so many laps shown already in the Summer Showdown. If you look at my playlist, I have like all the heats, all the mains, all that's left is the A main. I totally, again, missed how detailed I was going to go with it, and thus that's the reason why the Summer Showdown is still ongoing. And unfortunately, I did hit another burnout, and that's the reason why I'm making this video as well as the reaction video, because I was so working on Summer Showdown almost all the time that I needed a break to get away from it. Once this video is up, I am going to go back to the Summer Showdown and finish it. Now, if you're wondering, well, Griff, why don't you just cancel it and move on to stuff that you're actually interested in? I have so much completed already of the Summer Showdown. If you're wondering, the race is done. The broadcast from myself, Gino, and Napa Fan is all done. I have pit reports from William Crosland, from Luis Torres, as well as Caleb Hoffman, so that's all taken care of. And then I also have the podcast voices from all of them as well, like the podcast people. They're all taken care of as well. So I already have like all the pieces. I just still need to make sure that it's all put together. And as I said, I plan on doing that once this video is up. And at that point, the Summer Showdown, which will be my first premiere, should be up sometime in January, is my hope. Just keep an eye on social media and I'll let you know once that premiere happens. So let's go ahead and move on to the present and the future. There have been some speculations that some NASCAR YouTubers are going to stop making stuff in 2019 because they're fed up with NASCAR or whatever. I, at least right now, don't plan to, but it is still going to be on a limited level just because of, again, the temp job. I need to make sure, though, that I control myself so that I don't get burned out again and that I keep the energy and desire up to make videos here on YouTube. Because the last thing I want to do is to burn out and like have no desire to keep making videos. So let's talk about what to expect come 2019. First off, the showdown is the first thing that's going to happen. I'm going to work on that, and that is going to be out. That is my one and only priority once this video that you're seeing right now is up. I do plan to make a 2019 predictions video, and you'll see that the weekend, I would probably say the Thursday before the Daytona 500. And that way we have all the people lined up and we'll try to get the predictions right, at least better than 2018. In terms of races, I right now plan on going to 3 races again this year or next year. Right now, what I'm thinking for sure is the spring Kansas race, the second Iowa race for the Xfinity Series, just like last year. Third one, I want it to be big like the Coke 600, but I want to go somewhere else. I'm not too sure yet where I want to go, but I definitely want to do something different, something new. And since I'm 25, instead of driving, I think I might fly there instead. Another idea that I am toying with is some form of Grifftalks. But it will not be like what I did in 2017, and it's not going to be like out of the groove either. I want to do something where I do have like a conversation with you guys, and I want to like use this backdrop here, but I want to do it just to kind of add something new to the conversation. And maybe do some like my own opinion stuff, like top 10 drivers, top 10 least favorite drivers, and maybe like what are some ideas that could spice up NASCAR or something like that. It would be maybe like a weekly thing or something like that. I don't know. I'm just playing with the idea. I like the idea of continuing to speak, but with time being an issue for me, that could be something that I could throw out. It's an idea I like, but I don't know if I could follow through with it or not. So now in terms of big projects, well, first off, in order for me to kind of get to the point I'm talking about, I need to mention this first part. My contract at my temp job that I have right now as an ops processor, I don't know if I said this at the beginning, but I'll just say it right now. The maximum a contract can go for one job in a temp place is 2 years. I've been doing a good job at the operations, and like my managers have told me that you've been doing an excellent, or that I've been doing an excellent job there. So they have extended the contract out all the way to its farthest point, and that is November of 2019. What is going to happen is I'm going to be looking for potential opportunities. Like if something like an opportunity does come up through this temp job, I am going to look for it. Otherwise, if nothing does come up and November 2019 hits, I think it's a sign that this is it. I think it's a sign that I should go all out with Grifftalks Productions and just see where it flies. I've seen some good this year so far. I want to see if it can continue farther. And then second off, I have an idea for what to do after the showdown. I'll announce it later, but I'm going to tease you with 3 things, or 3 little teases. First of all, it's going to be like One More Spark, but it's not One More Spark. Number 2, I'm going to go full on 100, the 100 emoji, with this project. And then number 3, what if? One final thing that I will mention now, but I am going to delve into and announce more permanently later. I am in the beginning processes of setting up a Patreon page and a donations page. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about this, but I want to mention this now, and I'm talking about sponsors. I have a very, unique philosophy on sponsors. The reason why I make videos is for people to kind of get away, because I don't know about everyone's life, but I want to get them into like a different world. I want them to get out of their lives, because not everyone's life is perfect, and if they have some issues, come to my videos and enjoy them. But if they see like an ad in the video, it almost takes them out of it, and it reminds them that like, oh, everything is corporate, if you will. Now, I'm not totally like 100% negative to sponsors. The way if I do decide to go down the sponsor route, I want to do it either one of 2 ways. Either one, have it like the old NASCAR races where they say, this video of Grifftalks Productions is sponsored by Home Depot. I'm just going to use Home Depot for example, even though I'm not sponsored by them. I would do it that way, just have it quick, and I won't have it like be like a 2-minute segment of my video. Either that, or I do create like my own commercial for the product. So like if I am sponsored by Home Depot, I create my own commercial for Home Depot. I want it to be something where I can integrate it so that it's fine and it does not take you out of my videos. So that's my kind of take on it. Otherwise, I do want it to be driven by you guys. Like if you guys can help me with this cause, that would be great. Now again, nothing is set up yet, but it's definitely something that I am taking my first step towards. Before I go, and before I let you guys enjoy the rest of 2018, I do want to leave you with 3 lessons I've learned and 3 resolutions I have going into 2019. The first lesson that I've learned from 2018 is, if you have nothing nice to say, shut it. Not everything that comes to your mind has to be spurted out onto Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. there are some things that you could keep to yourself. Now, of course, I should say negative. I'm guilty of saying some split as well. But if there is things that I do want to say, I want to make sure I take a step back and think, okay, how are people going to react to what I am going to say? My second lesson that I am learning still is taking care of myself. I need to know when to rest. I need to know when to take a step back. And I need to know when is it okay for me to not work and when is it okay to just say no. It is something that I easily can fall into, and I easily can become a yes man just so that everyone is satisfied. But it gets to a point where it becomes a detriment to my health, and I need to recognize like when is too much. Small little example is that it is almost midnight here working on this, and I know I need to wake up at 6:15, but I also know that this is the only time for me to get this video done. The third lesson that I've learned is enjoy everything. It's so easy to be nitpicky, and in the final podcast I was a part of, Erich, as a joke of course, called me out and is like, okay, what is one controversial opinion that I have? I had to think about it because it's like, I'm almost cool with everything. And so I ended up saying, okay, the playoffs are okay. And I know that's not a big popular opinion. But to be honest, I'm just happy that we do have a NASCAR. I'm happy, well, I should say happy, but I'm satisfied with the playoff system. And I am completely understanding and I'm totally fine with what Joey Logano needed to do to beat the Big Three and be our 2018 Cup Series champion. And I'm fine with it all. And the reason why, it kind of has to do with work and the idea of just working so much. Like, I've worked so much that I've learned just to not care about the little things. Like, I just don't care. I'm glad Joey Logano won. Like I just don't have really the time or energy to blast it or anything like that. And don't get me wrong, there are some things that I do complain about, but instead of, just blatantly saying out on Twitter, part of what helps me with those complaints is the videos that I make. And I greatly appreciate having that area for me to do my work, and I could show off my frustrations or complaints. One example, I redid, quote unquote, the 2015 Fall Talladega race, the one where Joey Logano and Dale Jr. had their thing. So yeah, I just had to recharge my battery because I've been talking for so long. But yeah, the Dale Jr. Not winning the 2015 Talladega race was awful, and I complained about it by making that reenactment video. So let's jump off of that and let's talk about my resolutions for 2019. I have 3 of them. My first resolution is to schedule more downtime for myself. And what I mean by this is time for me to do nothing. And that's besides sleep. I'm talking like time where I'm not doing anything. Not working on my video stuff, not working on temp work, nothing. Time just for me to think, contemplate, reflect, and to plan for the future. I want to do this so that I can continue to improve to be a better person and try to figure out why there's so much white here on this shirt when it should be the black sweatshirt, but that's an argument or a discussion for another time. It's midnight, by the way, my time as I'm recording this. Resolution number 2 is health. It's the cliche one, but it's one I definitely need to talk about. I'm unfortunately not doing this now because I need to wake up at 6:15, but this video needs to get done. What I need to do, though, with health is I've been taking some positive steps. I've been eating more greens, I'm being more active in a proactive way, and, believe it or not, sleep and rest, also very huge to your health. You can actually gain muscle by resting more. It sounds crazy, but it does work. So that's definitely something I need to keep learning on, keep developing in order for me to get away from the heck that was 2018 and so that I can have a better 2019. One other health thing that I learned that I really want to spread to you guys is to those that have Windows 10, there is a night light feature on Windows 10. If you go to the start menu and you type in nightlight and you click on the nightlight results, there's a thing where you can actually turn off the blue light that comes off the monitor screen, and it helps the eyes so much. And I definitely hope this gets to you guys, and I hope you spread it to your friends so that you don't have to have eye drops or get glasses or anything like that, because I know a lot of people have stared at monitors for a while. Having the blue light gone helps so much. And finally, resolution number 3 is my hardest, but I am going to try, is to make someone's day daily. Now, this is tough for me as an introvert because it's so easy to be in my own world and to not talk to any friends for a long time. It's easy for me to do that. But I also know that humans are naturally built to be in communication with one another. We need to support one another. Which brings me to I believe this is my final announcement. Is this my last announcement? Yep. My final announcement is this. I am open to collaborating with other YouTubers. What I saw this year in 2018 was extraordinary. Seeing the NASCAR podcast, seeing some other collaborations, and you have this core league where several NASCAR YouTubers, from Let's Players to reenactors to stop motion makers, all come together for the love of NASCAR and having their own little league. And for what I've seen so far is doing pretty good. And I do want to help with that. I do want to help with collaboration. Like if there is any interviews that you want to be a part or help me be a part of, or if there's anything like a commentating or just any help with anything, like let me know. Now, side note, I'm still doing my own thing with the Summer Showdown as well as my temp work, but I'm definitely more open to it, and the opportunity looks good. I will definitely highly consider it. The last thing I will say though is this year it does sound rough, but as I said before, this year has been frustrating, but it's also been humbling. At the time, I didn't know it was going to be a big lesson, but it is definitely something that I have learned. And with what I've learned, I am definitely going to keep growing as a person. I'm going to keep developing as a person. And biggest thing that I've learned about myself is I love creating things. I want to sing. I want to dance. I want to go around and make creative content for you, my great people. I want to see the world. I want to see the stars. I want to go around to every racetrack like, what was that one? Oh yeah, Kansas. Now, if that was bad, I apologize. If it was good, thank you. It's late. I love to sing. I do. Singing is great. I love to sing a song about the tulips, all the NASCAR drivers, and Mikey winning the Daytona 500. It's late. But I love creating stuff. I do. I love making videos. I love making weird things. I love making things that no one else has made before. And I'm so thankful for you guys to stick around, especially this year being so hard for me because I've made so many promises that this is going to be made, this is going to get created, and I've let you guys down, and I'm sorry about that. Hopefully this video at least gives you an idea as to what happened. And your support is so everlasting. And honestly, if I was not where I am now, I probably would have stopped, honestly. You guys kept me going, and I'm sorry, the thing that I almost choke up about that I just can't believe. I'm totally off script, by the way. Apparently, like, the thing that Jared said is like, oh, popular, like, I'm popular? Like, apparently you guys, I don't know, I just find that so odd. Like, it's not about me. I hope you realize that. Like, this is not about me. All I care about is making fun videos for you guys to enjoy, get away from life, and to have the following that I have. Like, I can't believe it. I honestly can't believe that I am where I am at now. And thank you guys. I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep learning. I'm gonna keep growing. I'm gonna keep developing. And I'm gonna keep speaking the truth, you know? Because there's so little time for BS. So, I especially this year, because you'd think like, oh, Grifftalks not uploading as much, you might as well abandon ship. You guys didn't do that. And, I greatly do appreciate you for sticking around. And especially how long this video is going to be. If you are watching this at this point, I love you guys. I do. This community has grown. Sorry for that squeak. This community has grown so much over this past year. And I think we have something great. I honestly believe that we are the next voice of NASCAR. Even though NASCAR doesn't notice it yet, there's a lot of good people here. And I think if we all keep we keep working on our skills, we keep going at it, I honestly think we can definitely push NASCAR in the right direction. And we keep making it wonderful. So, okay, I might as well end it here before I start rolling down the tears again. So yeah, that will do it for me. It has been a frustrating year, but it's also been a humbling year, to say the least. 2018 has been a year that needed to happen in order for my future to be brighter, not just for me, but for you as well. So, thank you guys so much for watching, and this is Griffin saying so long, until next time.